Oh, hello. I'm so glad you could join me again. I'm coming to you now from Springfield, Illinois, where behind me you can see the Capitol Dome right above the office building where I must go to work every morning. And actually, I'm going to close my door now because if I didn't, there would be some glare. But it really is horribly cold out. I wanted to take this opportunity, now that I have your attention, to sort of apologize for not producing a video in the series for quite a while now. I stopped doing it right around the time that I kind of had a bit of a falling out in my work, and fortunately, that resulted in me quitting and for a brief period running around abroad doing some freelance work and such. And when I returned, it was not as a reporter, but as a media relations guy for a public figure. While I was away, I, of course, heard about plans to bring a 50 Shades of Grey adaptation to local cineplexes. I was informed forcibly by people who I thought were my friends that they are taking me to see it this weekend. I have begun to see over the past couple weeks, as we approach the film release, this this outrage about the entire phenomenon, and specifically the film, which I have never ever heard before. It's interesting to me because I think, based on what I'm reading now, that we have finally found the one thing in our culture that unifies the two schizophrenic extremes of our socio-political, economic, religious, bipolar spectrum. And it is hatred of 50 Shades of Grey. How wonderful. Uh, what's been interesting to me, I guess, is that now I'm seeing just kind of this torrent of outrage really being focused and saying, like, boycott the film, boycott this. This is abuse. This is 50 Shades of abuse, or whatever kind of clever term for it. What I don't understand is why people's outrage is directed solely at the film when there is so much actual non-fictional fucking abuse happening in the country right now. I'll tell you a little bit about the kind of work that I've been doing since I come back. I was with a state official when I came back, and one of the things that we worked on was a domestic violence initiative. What our thing would try to do is it would provide legal counsel, not representation, actual counsel, but like legal advice from divorce lawyers, custody lawyers, family law experts, you would call them, via Skype to shelters where women are, they're sheltered from their abuser. Like they have already gotten out of the abusive situation and they're going to, stay in this shelter until they can find out what they're going to do next. And here's what I learned while working on it. What I learned while working on it is that we like to hate on 50 Shades of Grey and everything because it is so clear cut. There's no moral or ethical ambiguity about it. Christian's an asshole and Anna's a victim, and it's easy for us to point at it and be like, oh, that's terrible. So that's why there's outrage around it. But the truth is that a lot of other situations in real life, non-fictional abusive situations, are not as easy to put your finger on. Nothing in them is cut and dry. In a lot of these situations, you're not talking about a boyfriend who a woman has just met and she has no ties to him and he's being an asshole to her. That does happen and it is a bad situation. But many times you're talking about a woman who's been with a husband for years, who has children by him, where just saying, oh, leave the asshole is just so reductive and oversimplified. My boss was a prosecutor of cases, of domestic violence cases, when she was beginning to come up in her legal career prior to her being a politician. And she told a story many times about one of her first days working on the case where a woman came in. She got up on the stand and she essentially not pled the fifth, because that's not the case, but she was silent. I mean, she refused to testify, essentially. The prosecutors were able to prove, even without the testimony, because they had such a preponderance of physical evidence, was that he had taken a shotgun and he had shot her in the head with a rubber bullet. And that's not funny. That's, unfortunately, many women feel like they can't get out of situations like that. And it's because it's complicated. And it's because they're depending on the judge, depending on the cops, people may not believe them. People may not follow up. There is, sad to say it, a bias against women in the process, even though they're the ones most victimized by it. This is something that like we're failing at. You don't even need to look in like secret cases like this where it's like happening in somebody's house. Like fucking look at Gamergate. So I guess my point with this whole thing is if you're going to get angry about 50 Shades of Grey being abusive and glorifying abuse and everything like that, you know, don't get outraged about it. It's just a stupid fucking book that has now been made into a stupid fucking movie. And I don't personally think that it's going to do anything to make relationships worse for women or girls. I don't think that it is going to encourage guys to treat women abusively any more than the ones who do already are. And I don't think that it's going to somehow hypnotize otherwise perfectly capable women of staying in relationships with destructive assholes who aren't sadly and terribly and unfortunately already doing that for whatever reasons. For whatever reasons. Final thought, and that is that no matter what you may believe about whether or not 50 Shades of Grey is like the end of civilization as we know it, I don't believe it is because some of the smartest, kindest, most emotionally intelligent, capable, empowered, and I'm going to say it, strong women I know, I love them some 50 Shades. And if they can read it and not feel degraded or minimized by it, then you probably shouldn't worry that bad. If you're going to decry gun violence, you probably shouldn't be screaming at Arnold Schwarzenegger movies either, because they're not realistic and they don't cut to the actual problem. Finally, if all of this navel gazing has been too much for you, I would like to encourage you, if you're willing, to take matters into your own hands and donate to organizations that stand against domestic violence. This weekend, there's a worldwide initiative called 1 Billion Rising. You can look them up online, and they're essentially protests standing with women against violence all over the world. Lastly, you can also donate. There is a national coalition against domestic violence, and you probably have a state chapter in your state. You can find more information about that at the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence website at ncadv.org. That's all I've got for you right now. Stay tuned. I'm hopefully going to have other book reviews up about subject matter that's not as questionable as stuff I've done in the past. Stick with it, and I hope to see you again soon. Come back to my unfurnished apartment and see me again next time. Good night.